to her parents to raise. And Maria, or Mayuri,
I cannot with this. I'm sorry. We have to fucking stop this.
All right, what do you want me to say? A lot happens. 100 years.
Not Maria. You said Mariah. Like, her name is definitely not Maria.
Okay, it's Rajani. It's Renaud. It's
Isaac, remember?
Latika.
Remember we went over.
Let's go beyond the first page. Let's go beyond the first page.
Welcome back, Second Pagers. This is Beyond the First Page podcast with siblings Phoebe, Phil, and Isaac. I'm Phoebe.
I'm Phil.
I'm Isaac.
And this is Club Meeting 42, A History of Burning by Janika Oza. And this book is surrounded by many themes. One of them is about food and the importance of food in cultural settings and gatherings, and also like familial gatherings. So I wanted to open up the podcast today talking about food that made us think of our childhood and familial foods that the Cornell family has. And I will turn it over to Isaac first to share his familial food.
So there's several, and I'll just give some honorable mentions. We've talked about the oatmeal on the podcast before. That's a big one. For my birthday, Dad's birthday, I guess all our birthdays, there's a variety of cheesecake. Phil, is yours the like Cornell cheesecake? You do that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Phoebe usually does the cherry cheesecake.
Cherry.
But so that's another shout out. Mine, though, is going to be just from a memory of just me and Dad eating chili dogs over the sink. So I associate chili dogs with Dad big time. And I've since had great memories with chili dogs without Dad that I still like contribute to Dad. So the old chili dog with hot sauce, cheese,
Over the
and
sink.
onions.
Over the sink.
Yeah, no plate necessary.
The sinkers. That's a good one. Phil, what about you?
Mine is much simpler, but I do want to give another shout out to Dad, who is the man behind the plain flour tortilla, who literally that is his favorite snack. Is just, the man has a job. His wife has a job. He chooses to eat. He comes home, runs in, folds a flour tortilla, nothing in it, just eats it. It is the wildest thing in the entire world. Like, we have a whole pantry full of food. Doesn't make any sense. So he probably does that, I mean, at least 7 times a day. Like, he cut, I think, like 20 pounds just from stopping eating flour tortillas. Wild. Anyway, so mine, though, is a soft pretzel, and the specialty is you dip it in grape juice and then pretend it's Holy Communion. So that's what we did when we were 7 or 8. So
we were going to Catholic
we went
school.
to Catholic school.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were
and
not
we weren't
Catholic.
allowed to take communion with everybody else, so we had to make up lost time.
Yes, that's a good one. That's a great one, actually. There's so many, and obviously all mostly surrounding Dad because he cooked for us growing up. But when I think of childhood, I think of these meatballs that he would make, and come to find out years later, it was the day he had to stay late for class. Like, he had a night class, so he couldn't cook for us in person, which I never knew. Oh, no, this was it. It wasn't that. It was because that was the night we had basketball, and they're shaped like little basketballs.
That also happened to be the night class, though.
Yes. Okay.
He was
so it was
never
both.
there when we ate it.
Right. He was never there. They had, I think, been like sitting. He just put
in a crock pot.
Yes. Tin
with
foil
no
in the crock pot. Yes. Frozen meatballs that you would get at like Walmart. And then we would have to eat them. And mom didn't give us sauce either because she didn't cook at all or like eat
She
any
let
of
us
that
use
food.
ketchup.
Yeah. So we would just eat these like tougher than nails, basically meatballs. But yeah, years later, I found out that dad always did that because it was basketball night and the meatballs reminded him of basketball. And also that he was working and couldn't cook for us, which I think like we gave him a lot of slack for the food, but that was like really sweet on both accounts,
Yeah.
that he was like thinking ahead of us. But I would say like the food that reminds me the most of home in like more of a positive way is pulled pork. He always still to this day, if I ever come home, he makes me pulled pork, which I love. So that's mine. And it's cool it was really cool to read this book because they have so much food I had never even heard of, and the amount of like community that surrounds food, or the amount of culture and community that surrounds their food is really amazing. And it was very interesting and fun to read about. So this is a perfect time just to remind you that this is a book club style podcast. So if you don't want a history of burning to get ruined for you, because Isaac's about to give us the summary, please stop here, go read the book, and then come on and listen to the podcast. And I'll just say this right off the bat before Isaac even gives the summary. This is a book that if you don't read any other books this year besides one book, read this book. That's my take just from the start. So I'm starting hopefully our discussion off really strong.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think with that, Isaac, would you tell us about A History of Burning in 15 seconds?
So basically, the first generation of this family that we follow is tricked into going to Kenya from India to build a railroad for the English. He does that work, builds a life for himself there, ends up moving to Uganda with his wife. They have their kids. And as their kids are having kids, the Ugandan government goes through a revolution. The British have left, and the military coup essentially kicks out all of the Asian immigrants. So their family's broken up, scattered across the world, but the main hub of them get to Canada, and they essentially have to start over when the parents are in their mid 50s. The kids are ranging from high school to early 20s. And they have left a daughter in Uganda and have to work through that loss while they're raising her kid in Canada.
Yes, very good, Isaac. That's a brief overview, but seriously, just read this book. I think it was, off the bat, just a very unique part of history that I think a lot of Americans have no idea about. And I'm sure even a lot of Canadians don't know about. And so, yeah, very interesting book and topic. And I'm curious to open it up to you to hear what was on your mind and what you got from this book and what you learned.
I agree with Phoebe's sentiment from when we started this podcast out. This has, to not leave you in suspense, has overtaken the spot for my favorite book of the year, if not one of my favorite books ever.
Wow.
Second time I've read it this year, and it was just as good the second time. The thing that stuck out to me the most, and it's something that I've been like thinking a ton about now because of this book, is this idea of the family unit and culturally how that's different and how that's changed in time, and what are the positives and negatives from that. We have a really big family, just us, and we're kind of spread out like all over the place. And honestly, it's a bummer sometimes. I missed our family reunion this year. It's hard. Not everyone can go to all the like wedding events. Whereas in this book, it was a big deal that the uncle had stayed back in Kenya and only visited once in a while. And like the sisters that like Benad's sisters that like left, they all came back and they all lived in this like compound. So that's the first thing that stuck for me the most. I don't have to ruminate forever on it, but it did make me think a lot and continue to think about the role of not only just the singular family unit, but the extended family unit. As a community.
Yeah. I think actually the biggest thing about this book to me that stood out was the plot out of like our three elements that we typically talk about. And I think you were like nail on the head for me too. The first thought I had was about that idea of the family, the familial connection and being very close together. And the way that I thought it was very well portrayed too was the grief that the sisters still felt for Latika, even though they thought she died and they hadn't seen her in, 20 years by the time the books end, or however long it had been. They had had a whole life. One of the sisters had gotten married, another had had a kid. And the grief that they still experienced from the loss of their sister, because their familial unit was so close, it was very evident, the emphasis on that like bigger family unit just than the immediate nuclear family that a lot of Americans are familiar with. I definitely thought that, and I thought that was very unique, the writing of the grief of the sisters, for sure. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I guess I want to push back that it was about the family. I thought the whole, not push back. I think, Isaac, you're right. Like that had me pondering too. But I guess I sort of interpreted the whole dynamic of the book to be this like interplay between sacrifice for your family and sacrificing for like what is morally right and what you feel is morally right. And I think the characters diverged in this. And I think the entire sort of book is written about this like, starts with Hirabi just like actually just not doing a good thing and then feeling bad about it for a while, but he didn't do that good thing because of his family, I guess. Like it was for himself, but it was also because he did want to create this like legacy and sort of provide for somebody. And I think that sort of goes throughout the entire book. I think you have characters like Radhika, who does just sort of sacrifice her family a little bit for her social justice.
I would say she, by the definition of sacrificed a family member, did that.
Yeah.
But you have Vinod and the mom Rajni, who just sort of don't. And I don't think it's like a right answer. I think it's a hard decision, but what Laudika stood up for, I think, deserves to be stood up to. I think that was a oppressive regime that like she did a good thing, but her father and her mother moving and not standing up to the regime, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think her son, Haji, realizes that you do have to stand up for what you believe in. And I think Kia believe at the end also. So I think it's this whole interplay between, okay, I need to care about these 5 people that I want to care about, or do I just disregard these people and fight for what I believe in? And I think both sides you have just regret. And I thought that was really interesting how we're sort of pigeonholed between these two really, really big decisions. I don't think we are, because we don't face this type of oppression. So, but I think that a lot of times in life we are dealt like, okay, what's good for me and my own versus what's good for society. And it's hard to choose either one of them. And I think that this book really spelled it out and made it very clear. And I don't think there was a single character in this book that you like didn't like. The main character of the family that you didn't like. Like I liked every single member of the family.
When you say the book spelled out and made it very clear, are you saying it spelled out that dichotomy and that decision?
Yeah, I think like those decisions were very
on
clear,
display.
And at least like like Laudika made obviously one very strong decision, whereas like her mother and father made the exact opposite decision.
Right. And not that I believe this, but curious to hear your guys' reaction. Okay, she sacrificed her husband, right? And her son. Her husband straight up died in jail because of her. Literally because of her. And the actions that she was taking with
but also the actions that he wholeheartedly believed in.
At one point, he did tell her to stop. He was like, stop this or you're going to get us in trouble. And she did not stop. But yes, he started her on that path and then lost her son in a way that her parents took him to be raised by their own. And then the government that she was fighting for fell anyway. She ended up not being able to be really that effective at all with the newspaper she was writing. And then in a few years, like, people were moving back to Uganda because the regime change. So it's like, was it all for naught?
Well, it wasn't a
What do
few
you-
years. It was like 20 years.
20 years.
But
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But actually, no, because I think a couple years later, Kia's old boyfriend wrote her and said, like, I'm out of the army now. That's over. And
I think that the military regime was over, but I don't think they welcomed Asians
immigrants back. Okay.
until the 2000s, actually.
Okay. So you think, I guess, like, I'm hearing a little bit that you guys think that the sacrifice was, you know, in her, like, you can see why she made that sacrifice and it wasn't in vain.
no. But we have the glory of hindsight.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah. I mean, I do
Right.
think,
Like, she believed. Yeah. You're right.
yeah. So, yeah, it didn't work for her. But, like, also,
But if
yeah,
everyone,
I mean, if no one ever stands up for
Yeah.
anything, like, we just have, yeah.
but
Right.
it's because I 100% agree with that, but I sympathized and like related so much more to the self-sacrifice for the family unit characters than I did
Mhm.
to,
For her.
yeah.
Me too.
I mean, I think it is a lot easier to sympathize with that just in your own life. Like, I mean, how many people would you let die to save your son or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, I think
Right.
that's like a question that, what's the Stalin quote? One person dies and it's a tragedy, but 20 million people die and it's a statistic or something like that. And I think that that's like this entire balance.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I thought so. I kind of had this idea. Both of you have hit on it now, and this was the thought that generated in my mind. I think maybe both of you have said it more eloquently, but there was definitely this idea for a lot of the characters in the family of providing for the next generation, or like setting the next generation up for success by the actions that you do. And that was kind of the only thought. Like, it was never, oh, I enjoy, having a grocery store, I'm going to have a grocery store. It's like, I'm going to get this store so that my kids will have something when I die. And it made me think a lot about like parents in general. And I guess like our parents too, of like the self-sacrifice of the constant need to better the generation. But then when is it like, okay, I do this for myself? And it was like a little shout out to our mom, because I think that she was very self-sacrificing and did a lot of things for us, but also like had this balance of taking it, doing things in her career that she wanted to do. And this book made me think a lot about her and a lot about that, because I think a lot of parents, and the parents in this book, don't do that. They just do everything for the kids. And it's like, did you even live if you're constantly just worried about that next generation? I don't know if you guys had that thought, or if like this comment sparks anything for you, but that was kind of the thought experience that I was going through when I was reading this.
Yeah, I think I don't think it was just the parents to the kids though. I think that all the kids had this idea that we're a family unit as well, and we have a role in this. Vinod didn't go to college because he didn't want to
Put the financial
abandon
burden.
his family. Yeah.
Yeah.
He wanted to make them proud by staying in Uganda and building their whole entire family up more. And they did. They got a new, bigger house, which allowed his sisters to move back with their families too.
Right.
And then Mayuri, she then goes through this, similar conversation with her parents, but because of her dad's sacrifice, she's able to do that. And then she leaves India and that woman she loves there to go back to be close to her family and help them and take on that burden of caring for her parents, who are now aging out of their second careers in America now.
That's a good point.
And I think that, I don't know if we're getting to an age where it's like, I feel like I need to be considering that more or something, but that it wasn't just the parents trying to make their kids better. It was the entire family trying to make their entire family better.
Yeah, and that's culturally very different than us. And maybe also being immigrants plays a factor. Like even in Uganda, they were, only second generation Ugandan. So
Yeah.
maybe they were also constantly feeling the need to prove themselves, which you see a lot when they moved to Canada. There was a lot of that needing to prove themselves. He gets put in an English as a second language in elementary school, even though he speaks perfect English, just because of the color of his skin and the way his parents were talking. Yeah, so that's a good point, Isaac, that it wasn't just the parents. It's just very different than us culturally, which is interesting to read about.
Yeah, I do actually think for Vinod, Isaac, you couched this as he sacrificed this. He sacrificed going to college. I mean, to me, I wonder how much of this self-sacrifice for your family, for something, and I think you see it in Latika as well, is actually this selfish martyrdom, or you're actually just scared to do this, so you're saying, I'm going to do it for my family. I think for him, I saw it a little bit as like, I'm scared to take a jump to college, and like, is this going to pan out? And it was a selfless action that he said it was, and I think it was in general, but I think there was also a little bit of fear there. For Latika, I think it was different. I think that her sacrifice was also just very much this selfish, she needed to be the one that gave up everything. Like, I need to be this martyr to really embody the idea of myself that I want to curate. So I don't think, not to be super pessimistic about human nature, but I think oftentimes these sacrifices, whatever they may be for, are maybe a little bit more selfish than people like to admit.
Yeah, they could be. I didn't read it that way, but definitely there is a chance that it could be for sure. I think the fear of doing something, or like having an excuse to being like, oh, I didn't do this because I wanted to do X and like care for somebody or do this other thing that was very good, is definitely a real thing.
Yeah.
I
But
don't
not as
know. I
much as
don't
what you saw
necessarily
in
think
this
if it
book.
was, that was, I didn't take it that way for these characters, but just in life and human nature, definitely I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I do agree with it more with Latika than with her dad. I think her actions were very selfish. She knew she had a kid that did not choose to be put into harm's way or lose his mom. I think when you're making decisions like that for your family, you're being selfish. You're putting them at a lot of risk. If it was just her by herself out there, being a rebel, great, you all the power to you, but you've involved other people now, and that's where I do see that selfish act. But I feel like I was pretty hard on her as a character overall. She really frustrated me. And then like her cowardice of not reaching out, and her family, you got the other side of like her family hurting and wanting to be with her. She frustrated me a lot as a character.
That I think I was more frustrated with her. Like I can understand and I find myself, I think, defending her more than I did as I was reading. But her whole like Phil said, if no one ever stands up because they're just worried about their immediate, like how other people around them are gonna be harmed, we would
still have
I
like
don't know where we
slavery.
would be doing.
Yeah,
Like
it would be bad. Yeah.
it'd be horrible. Like people do need to step up and do what they believe is right, because her sacrifice, had that movement won out, would have been better for her family and her entire community.
Yeah.
It's true.
So like that's what people are fighting for every day in these communities that are marginalized and discriminated against, and when they put their own families on the back burner or at risk. But if they can win out, like everybody is so much better off.
Is winning. Yeah.
So I had less of a problem with that. Like as I'm reading, I'm like, why is this woman doing this? But in reflection, I understand that. Why she never reaches back out in the shame and grief of her own loss and possibly failure, I do not understand at all. And
I am
not
gonna
sympathize or even give her credit. I just think that is total cowardice. Yeah.
So here's the thing. I'm going to also, yeah, I mean, I think you're right. But just to present the other side, we do get the image of them in Canada, right? Like we get the image of, is she alive? Like, is she okay?
Mm-hmm.
But up until that point, like her family did not disown her, but they were not pleased with anything that she was doing.
Yeah, for sure.
And to like
Like
she
in
got
Uganda,
negative
when they were in Uganda.
And so her entire like last years with them were just them disapproving of everything that she was doing. And yeah, she should have reached out, but I do think that like should and it was an easy thing to are two different things. I think it after disappointing your entire family for years on end and then failing at what you did to disappoint them, being able to just reach out and try to make amends is harder. And I think that they were radically accepting of her, but also they were a very loving family. I think many other families might have been like, no, like we don't want you in our family anymore. Like this is what you did to us. You left us your son too. And like,
Yeah.
and I think that maybe she should have reevaluated and known her family was a bit more loving than they were. But I don't think that it would have been unreasonable for her family. Well, it wouldn't have been good, but it wouldn't have been unreasonable for her family to be like, we don't want anything to do with you, actually. And I think that that was probably what was going on in her head.
Yeah, I think maybe too, like, I don't know if I agree with that wholeheartedly, Phil, but I think maybe too the fact that she was gone for so long let them forgive and accept her and want her back. Whereas, like,
Yeah.
Mayuri never felt comfortable sharing that she was a lesbian with her family.
Yeah.
So, yes, they were loving, but maybe only to a point because I think she would have shared that if she had thought. I mean, this is the 90s. Like, there was definitely lesbians that were out, and there was a movement of the gay community in the 90s, you know? So, yeah, I think to a point they were loving and accepting. And I think maybe, like, to give her a little credit, Latika, like, the reason they were able to forgive her was because she had been gone for so long. And they missed her. They realized, you know, we miss her more than we disapprove of her or whatever.
Yeah. I think that one thing that I also wanted to know in this book was just there were so many types of oppression, whether it be racial oppression, economic, social. It's wild how late people are to change their ways.
Yeah, Phil, I think that's like a great point, and just like you know, yeah, that like what you said, like how slow humans are to learn or to like learn from history, and like why
is that?
You know, we see this just repeatedly over and over and over again, and the human beings as a species just continue to do it, and it just is like infuriating to read about and hear about and think about. But
yeah, I think I wanted to get your guys' snippet on why this was such a good book, whether that be the writing, the characters, the plot, all the above. I think for me, the writing was very to the point. It was easy to follow the story, even with character names that maybe are not familiar to an American reader. And you're jumping from several different places across the world. So I liked the writing style. I liked that it jumped from generation to generation. And I thought that it really exposed a time in history and a place in the world that I was not familiar with. And so for that reason, it was a 5-star book for me, and it was a must read for all the second pagers out there. And so, yeah, that's really why this book stuck out to me so much. And I would love to hear why it stuck out to you, and then your rating as well, if you would share.
Yeah, I think I do appreciate the multi-generational sagas that keep you hooked the entire time. I think that's like very hard to have characters literally disappear from the book halfway through, and then new characters are introduced, and it's just like, wow, like you don't really
missed
realize
this
that
character.
Yeah, I mean but
That's
also like
point.
Latika wasn't introduced till 40% of the book was over. You know what I mean? Which is wild. And I think that that's very cool. I think the characters and the plot for me, I think the writing was fine. I'm not too hard on the writing regardless usually. I think it was also a 5-star book for me. yeah, very much enjoyed it.
Nice. Isaac?
Yeah. So for me, I loved the description of, we talked about kind of in the beginning, of the food and of the clothing, their community stuff, their Hindu rituals and whatnot. I thought was all described very well. I also liked how they like meshed the languages, so that it was obviously written in English, but you're reading, and then they say some Hindi words, they say some Swahili words, and you can kind of see it like being meshed together as this family is, becoming its own entity. And then, yeah, love the generational story. Very well done. And then just the resilience of this family through 100 years.
So much. Yeah.
And to like get to experience all of that was just so awesome. We talk about all the time, like the things that like pump you up, and seeing this like family just persevere and stick together and be unwilling to quit or give up, or even to have that belief that they are going to go like get out of this and move on and do something great, is just like really inspiring. And I know this is like a historical fiction book, but reading something like that like really jazzes me up.
Yeah. And I think it's like very realistic, story. There's stories you hear about real people. Yeah.
Yeah. So 5 stars for me too.
Nice. Yeah. Did you have any quotes, Isaac, that you wanted to share? I thought this book was pretty quotable.
I had a couple. One was, love couldn't depend on fully knowing a person. It flourishes in the absences. And that was the grandmother says that. And then this one I really liked. This was Prebuy to Vinod. Dika, you don't like the work. You know what you do. And Sue, which is I think like what in Hindi probably. Put your head down. Work harder. Vinod tried to wriggle away, but Papa kept going, his voice dogged. Work harder so that they see you. The more they see you, the less they'll watch. And when they stop watching, that's when you're free. Those were two that I liked. There's a couple more.
Yeah. I had one that says that was, how do you go on living when the best part of you has died? And I think it was when the grandfather died, but I could have also been when Rajni lost her daughter, when she thought she had lost Latika. But very poignant. That line made me cry. It was very poignant. So, and it could apply to either one of those, like the loss of a child or a spouse. So, I thought this book was very quotable, a lot of poignant moments. And I think if you liked this book, you should read Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese. Abraham Verghese is one of my most favorite authors. It is also a generational book about an Indian family. Isaac, I highly recommend it to you. It's a exceptional book. Covenant of Water, that's what I would recommend. Phil, what about you?
Yeah, I would actually recommend The Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu. It is fantasy, but it is sort of a dynastic book to the point where the main character, it's 4 books, but the main character in the first book is not even around, and it actually shifts, like the main characters are his children and then their children as well. So it's cool. Very good. I think it's like it's probably one of my top 5 favorite fantasies. And it's like an Asian based fantasy as well. So you get a little bit more cultural, but this is more East Asian, like Chinese, Korean, Japanese rather than Indian.
That sounds very interesting. Isaac, what about you?
I said Trust by Hernan Diaz. We did this one this year on the podcast. Another excellent historical fiction book that will, keep you mesmerized.
Yeah, that was a good one for sure. Yeah. Okay, cool. Great discussion, you guys. I feel like it was a bit somber, but that's kind of the book doesn't bring you down, but it really makes you reflect on a lot of different things, as you can tell from the discussion. So really recommend that people read this book. It's a great one. And the next one we are reading is much more lively and lighthearted, and it is called, you can just tell from the title, The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out the Window and Disappeared. It's by Johannes Johannesson. And Isaac, could you just tell us about that book before we go?
Yes, so this book is about Alan Carlson, who escapes on his 100th birthday party by climbing out of the window of his nursing home. He embarks on an unexpected adventure encountering criminals, a suitcase full of money, and an elephant, all while his past life, filled with involvement in major 20th century events, interactions with historical figures, is revealed.
Yeah, this is a good one. And it sounds kind of like not stupid, but just goofy. But it is a great book. I could not put this book down. Phil recommended it to the podcast and I had read it already. Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, it's a book for anybody. So very much looking forward to talking about that with you guys next time. And as always, this is your bi-weekly reminder to call someone that you love, tell them that you love them, tell them about a good book, tell them to read A History of Burning by Janika Oza. And until we talk again, stay classy, second pagers. We'll see you later.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
First page.